Lottie is fantastic for delivering high quality motion, but sometimes it's extremely frustrating because the renders break, there's errors, and you have no idea what's going on. Like sometimes you create an amazing piece of motion with a beautiful gradient and you get something like this. Let me show you a few tricks to ensure you get great Lottie exports every time. Let's dive in. All right, so here we are inside of After Effects and we have these absolutely beautiful gradients here. Maybe this is some sort of loading pattern or something like that, but we have a lot of gradients going on here. And so I want to walk you through a few things that you should keep in mind when exporting Lottie animations in general, and a few tips and tricks to make sure that you get this when you actually export the Lottie. First thing, make sure you're naming your layers uniquely. We're going to go through, name it 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're all unique. And even more than that, let's make sure we actually go inside of here to the contents. And we see that we have rectangle 1, which refers to this shape. And then we have path 1, stroke 1, gradient fill 1, and transform rectangle. All of these beyond the transform, we can actually rename. And if we go in here and look at our second layer, we can see that it's all named the same thing. Sometimes, we don't really know when it happens or why it happens in certain times, but sometimes because you have the same name for the paths and the fills in one layer as you do in another layer, it can cause some issues when you export. So a good rule of thumb, if you're running into issues, to go through and name each one of these things uniquely. So let me run through and do that now. So now you can see everything inside of my layer that I'm animating and changing is a unique name from every other layer. That ensures that there are no weird conflicts that happen when we go to export. The second thing we can do, if your animation is set up in such a way that allows this, what you can do is go ahead and pre-comp all of your layers. Sometimes this will help eliminate some random issues of things getting crossed over from layer to layer and things not applying correctly. So unique names, pre-comping our layers sometimes will help. The third thing is specifically when we're working with gradients. Say I have this animation here. Let's go ahead and save our file and we're going to render out this Lottie animation. And let's just make sure that it's working right now. We're gonna render it out, open it up, and we're gonna preview the HTML demo that it spits out with it. So from what we can see, if we look at that and we look at this, the animation is looking the same, the colors are looking right. But let's say that we want to go ahead and change some of our colors. We're gonna reveal our keyframes for just these two. And we're gonna change the color of this one to something else. Maybe we want some blues in there, we want some yellows, we wanna change this to red, something like this. So it's looking really different. And then we're gonna change this middle gradient color to be something different as well. And then this last one is gonna be a repeat of the first. So now it's looking very different, right? And we're gonna copy this to the other square. And now we got two different looking gradients, okay? We're gonna export it. We're gonna give it a unique name, make sure that demo is selected so that we can preview it locally, and we're gonna render that out. And now we're gonna launch it. And what do we see? That it's no different than the previous render that we did. It's not rendering out any of the changes that we just made. It's a unique file. The JSON Lottie that it's exporting should be unique, but yet there are no changes here. This can be very infuriating, but it's an easy fix. What we have to do is just save our file. So you can see it's not saved because we had that little asterisk right there. If we hit Command S and save, let's go ahead and render it back out over the same thing. Yes, this is our old animation. This is our new colors. Now we can see it's actually applying those colors. The reason that it works this way is because when body moving renders out the Lottie file, it looks at the After Effects project file to pull the gradient information from. So if you haven't yet saved that file, it's just looking at the same gradient information as before. Sometimes this can reveal itself as looking like this, where we have an amazing gradient made, we render it out, and for some reason it's in grayscale or black and white. Save your file, and you will avoid that issue most of the time. Let's see, I think that was 3 so far. So number 4, this is just a good rule of thumb with any sort of Lottie export. Make sure that your keyframes are cleaned up. If there are layers in there that you don't need, delete them. If there are keyframes in there that you don't need, delete them. The more stuff in there means the more probability that performance will suffer when you have this in an app or on a website, and more possibility for something to go wrong during export. And it just makes your file, and it's just a good rule of thumb to work cleanly. So let's take a look at this file. We are not actually using any size or position movement, and so we can actually remove those properties completely. You see that I have 4 keyframes here. Let's go ahead and delete those completely. Come down here, I have some more nasty keyframes here that are just taking up space, and right here we have more. So now it's all nice and cleaned up. Another thing in this cleanup phase, make sure that if you're using a track matte, that you actually need a track matte. Sometimes track mattes create some more issues during the rendering process. And so if you don't need it and you can kind of embed those styles and those colors into the actual layer, do that instead because it will result in a much cleaner Lottie export. The last thing to keep in mind, as you're previewing it here with the demo render selected when you export out of body moving, you are only previewing it using the web version of Lottie. When you're going to actually be putting these animations on your iPhone or your Android in an app, that is using the iOS and Android versions of Lottie, and they are not the same across the board. For the most part, they are, but there are always some things that can be different on each one of them. So it's very good for you to test the animation specifically on your device. So Lottie Files has an app where you can upload the Lottie file and preview it on your device. And when you're previewing it on your device, it's actually running the framework of Lottie designed for your specific operating system and your device. Make sure you're always doing that so you can catch all the potential issues before you hand it off to your developers or engineers. And that's it, folks. Hopefully this helps you not be so frustrated for hours and hours and hours not knowing what's going on with your Lottie exports, and it can help speed up your workflow. Catch y'all next time.